Why would you think that that made it okay for you, without any advance notice, to bring this matter before the jury? That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country.
Blake Lively is probably crying in a corner right now after her dirty move got demolished by a new judge armed with damning evidence. And now this case isn't just falling apart, it's getting obliterated. Especially after Brian Freedman's appeal exposed Judge Liman's biased ruling and shady connections. On top of it all, Chief Judge Debra and Livingston approved the investigation. And now Blake's favorite bench warmer just got benched for good. Cheers, Blake. Because things were already messy, but then Judge Louis J. Liman took a wrecking ball to whatever was left of public trust in this trial. In what was supposed to be a routine part of the discovery phase, Liman abruptly threw out two of the most critical claims in Justin Baldoni's lawsuit. The ones directly accusing Blake Lively of sabotage and breach of trust. No in-depth breakdown, no legal clarity, just a few vague lines about jurisdictional limitations and the supposed lack of substantial merit. The courtroom may have accepted the paperwork, but outside that building, no one was buying it. Legal analysts across the board started raising eyebrows. The ruling felt preloaded, like it had been drafted before arguments were even heard. And then the real trouble began. Not in the courtroom, but outside it. Investigative reporters, legal bloggers, even a few internet sleuths began digging into Liman's background. What they found turned an already questionable ruling into a full-blown scandal. Turns out, Judge Louis Liman's brother has a direct link to Orient Talent Group, a major player in Hollywood's agency world. Not just any agency either, one that has done business with Blake Lively's network. Talent negotiations, campaign partnerships, even back-end deals on previous studio projects. This one detail changed everything. What first looked like a poorly justified court decision now looked like a strategic protection play. And once that detail broke online, everything spiraled. Liman's refusal to disclose these connections was seen as a direct breach of judicial ethics, especially given that this wasn't the first time his impartiality had been questioned in entertainment-related disputes. And for Baldoni's team, this wasn't just a legal blow, it was personal. So they filed their emergency motion with the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. It was clear they weren't just challenging a ruling. They were challenging the integrity of the entire process. Their filing, submitted on June 8, 2025, was sharp, loaded with direct accusations against Judge Louis J. Liman, citing his dismissal of key claims as not only flawed, but procedurally corrupted by personal conflicts. They argued that the ruling wasn't just legally unsound, it was tainted, and the appellate court clearly agreed. Just 2 days later, the Second Circuit dropped a formal response that sent shockwaves through both the courtroom and the press. They didn't just reverse Liman's dismissal, they obliterated it. In the written opinion, the court stated that Liman's ruling was procedurally inconsistent and legally insufficient, a rare and pointed rebuke that legal analysts said bordered on an accusation of judicial malpractice. The judges even noted that his legal reasoning failed to align with federal rules of Civil Procedure 12b-6, the standard for dismissal, and had omitted required analysis of the plaintiff's factual sufficiency. More damning was the court's side note pointing out that possible extrajudicial influences may have played a role in Liman's decisions. That phrase, vague but deliberate, appeared in the appellate summary's footnote 17, and legal insiders took it as a signal. This wasn't just a bad ruling. This might have been a compromised bench. Within hours of the ruling being unsealed, reporters from the Hollywood Courier and Deadline Legal began publishing pieces confirming what many suspected. Judge Liman had been formally referred to the Judicial Conduct Review Board. By June 12th, Law 360 and Insider Legal Weekly confirmed that Liman was under active federal scrutiny for undisclosed financial bias, tied to his connections with Orion Talent Group, whose corporate disclosures now revealed indirect compensation to Liman's brother, Charles Liman, through back-end points on IP asset negotiations. None of these ties had been disclosed during Liman's assignment to the Baldoni Lively case, As the heat intensified, Chief Judge Debra Livingston of the Second Circuit signed off on a reassignment order, and by June 1st, new judge had been named, Honorable Teresa Miguel. The selection raised eyebrows, not because of controversy, but because of how serious she is. Miguel, a former U.S. federal prosecutor with a record of 21 celebrity-related indictments, is known inside the Eastern District for her hardline stance on misuse of media power, defamation law, and evidence manipulation. She presided over the 2021 Evelyn Hartwire smear suit and the 2023 Pierce versus Vantage case, both involving high-level entertainment figures trying to bury evidence through procedural loopholes. Miguel's first order, issued June 2nd, didn't waste time. She reinstated all 4 original claims in Baldoni's suit without modification: breach of trust, reputational sabotage, NDA violation, and intent to interfere, and formally declared Judge Liman's earlier dismissal in conflict with standing federal precedent. She also made it clear she wasn't here for celebrity politics. In document number 148 on the public docket, Miguel issued a judicial directive giving Blake Lively's legal team exactly 14 days to produce supplementary disclosures related to discovery evidence previously deemed non-admissible under Liman. This included 3 email chains, metadata logs, and 1 Slack export from a private production server used by Lively's PR team in mid-2020, all of which Baldoni's team had cited in their original complaint. Sources close to the court say Miguel is also reviewing the motion for forensic examination of deleted iCloud backups, initially denied by Liman in February 2020, which Baldoni's attorneys claim could contain evidence of intentional sabotage by a member of Lively's internal team. This means Blake's side will have to scramble, not just to defend the existing claims, but to retroactively justify why key data was withheld or dismissed under the previous judge. The shift in tone from Liman to Miguel was obvious. In court, she didn't entertain PR spin or vague legal defenses. In one early hearing transcript dated June 5th, she interrupted Blake's lead counsel mid-sentence, stating, "This is not a press tour. If you have a procedural objection, cite it. Otherwise, we're moving forward." And forward it moved. Miguel scheduled a pretrial evidentiary hearing for July 12th, with the intent to rule on the admissibility of reintroduced recordings and third-party testimonies, the very same evidence Liman previously discarded. This wasn't just a routine substitution of judges. This was a full reset, a clean slate, but not for Blake, for the process, for the case, for the evidence that had been buried for months under vague legal jargon and quietly dismissed motions. And now, everything that was pushed aside is back on the table. This time, under a judge who doesn't care how many Vogue covers you've landed. The moment Armstrong Teresa Miguel reopened all 4 claims against Blake Lively on, the courtroom atmosphere shifted from strategic posturing to sheer panic, and not just on the record. Inside the chamber that day, lead defense counsel Aaron Schacht was overheard raising her voice during a sidebar with the clerk. But the real moment came when the hearing resumed, and transcripts captured her verbatim outburst, directed at Judge Miguel. "We are being ambushed with new precedent." Those words didn't just reflect legal frustration. They exposed the internal chaos unraveling behind Blake's high-priced legal wall. By June 14th, a redacted exhibit labeled EX67C was mistakenly attached to a supplementary filing by Lively's own legal team. The attached files, later ordered sealed by Miguel, included leaked internal emails referencing a crisis PR playbook titled Project Optics. According to sources from the Hollywood Law Ledger, this wasn't just about managing headlines. The strategy specifically outlined steps to stall pending press leaks, monitor Reddit/TikTok chatter, and suppress influencer blowback. One memo, dated May 26th, advised the team to put neutralize key podcast voices before June 5th, indirectly referencing legal commentary platforms like Gavel Watch and Page 6 Legal Live. The fallout didn't stop there. Within 48 hours of Judge Miguel's appointment, 2 junior attorneys from Lively's team, Allison Brantley and Marcus Narani, formally resigned. Their departures were filed with the Southern District Clerk's Office on June 3rd, citing irreconcilable ethical concerns as the reason. While neither has commented publicly, Law 360 confirmed both attorneys had previously raised objections about withholding metadata and improperly cataloged third-party communications in discovery. Simultaneously, Baldoni's camp moved aggressively. In affidavit number 47A, submitted under oath on June 6th by licensed private investigator Trevor Mencia, it was alleged that Blake's legal team had directly contacted at least 2 third-party witnesses without routing through counsel. One of them, a former project manager tied to the shelved mental health series, reportedly told Mencia that she felt coerced into minimizing her testimony. Mencia's statement claimed the interaction occurred on April 21st, during the peak of pre-trial back and forths, and alleged that intentional misrepresentation was employed to influence the witness's confidence in her evidence. The court has not yet confirmed the validity of the claim, but Judge Miguel's June 7th hearing docket included an unscheduled line item: discussion of potential witness interference and improper pre-hearing contact. The implication? This isn't over. It's just beginning to unravel in real time. Meanwhile, the press got its hands on even more cracks forming inside Lively's public image. Entertainment lawyer Dana Calvert, who has worked with Blake in the past, told the Hollywood Courier on June 8th that several prominent allies, including one Netflix executive and 2 former brand collaborators, had gone completely radio silent. Another source described the actress's current inner circle as hollowed out, with only one longtime advisor, PR strategist, Morgan Vass, still communicating with the media. The phrase Project Optics had trended on legal Twitter for over 18 hours straight, with screenshots of the leaked internal memo making rounds across Reddit, Discord, and even TikTok legal commentary accounts. One viral post by @LegalDramaDigest broke down the phrase covert post-timing strategy from the leak, explaining how Blake's team tried to bury damaging coverage beneath unrelated celebrity news cycles. But the spotlight got even hotter when the evidence Judge Liman had previously buried was dragged back into the open under Miguel's orders. Among the reintroduced exhibits was audio file A4C, a 10-minute phone recording between Blake Lively and an unnamed entertainment consultant. In the recording, Blake can be heard saying, "I'll make sure he's blackballed quietly, no fingerprints." According to Court Media Central, the consultant responded affirmatively and added, "We'll let it die on the trades first, then let Netflix know." The forensic report, filed by Digital Integrity Labs and ordered by Miguel, confirmed that the recording had not been tampered with, edited, or manipulated. Dated November 13th, 2020 and captured via an encrypted voice memo app, the file was originally deemed irrelevant hearsay under Judge Liman. Miguel, however, reversed that position and cited the Federal Rules of Evidence 801 D2, admissions by a party opponent, to justify full inclusion in the upcoming evidentiary hearing. Another bombshell emerged in the form of audio file B9E, an alleged recording between Blake and a senior Netflix development executive. In this clip, Blake is heard referencing Baldoni's pending mental health project directly. "It's not just that he's greenlit, it's that I'm being erased. You kill this project, or I'm walking from everything else." The executive hasn't been publicly named, but Variety Legal reported that the voice matched that of Jared Castellan, Netflix's VP of Originals, and that his legal team has since filed for a limited protective order regarding the use of his voice in open court. The reappearance of this evidence didn't just sting, it shifted the weight of the case. A separate document retrieved through a subpoenaed Proton Mail thread was decrypted and entered into the record as Exhibit P-133. It contained a strategy memo with headings like Coordinated Media Erosion, Delink Phase, and Kill the Mental Health Angle. Each section included detailed timelines, social media targets, and PR suppression contacts. including references to 2 freelance journalists at The Wrap and BuzzFeed, both of whom denied involvement but have since gone inactive online. The legal community took note. On June 15th, Legal Brief Weekly released a statement from Harvard law professor Elaine Colby, who stated that the documentation now available in the public record opens the door for charges related to reputational sabotage, tortious interference, and possible conspiracy to suppress creative competition. Her interview cited Section 230 limitations, which could still protect platform actions, but clarified that individual actors are not insulated from liability if intent to damage is proven. As more details come to light, Judge Miguel has ordered 2 additional closed-door review sessions for mid-June to assess admissibility of all PR-linked evidence under Rule 403 and Rule 404B, standards that govern prior acts and character-based inference. Legal observers believe these sessions will determine whether Blake's alleged behavior reflects a consistent pattern of sabotage, rather than isolated incidents. And with over 230 pages of newly reinstated material, including private recordings, encrypted emails, and now 2 sworn affidavits involving unethical contact with witnesses, what was once framed as a bitter professional feud has become something else entirely. An ongoing legal collapse unraveling in full public view. The case didn't begin with a dramatic courtroom outburst or a viral headline. It started quietly, almost formally, with a civil suit filed by Justin Baldoni on February 5th, 2020 in the Southern District of New York. At first glance, it read like a standard dispute between 2 celebrities over a failed collaboration. But once the details began surfacing, it became clear this wasn't a creative disagreement. It was a full-scale accusation of betrayal, backstabbing, and reputational warfare. Baldoni's filing was straightforward in its opening. Blake Lively had allegedly sabotaged a joint mental health advocacy project that the 2 were co-producing through their respective production arms, Wayfarer Studios and Emerald Narrative. The project, which was never formally announced but had a working title of Unspoken, aimed to spotlight untold stories of male vulnerability in the entertainment industry. According to court documents, the project was greenlit for pre-production in November 2024, with streaming interest from Apple TV Plus and distribution talks underway with participant media. But by December, everything had stalled, and by January, the project had been shelved entirely. Baldoni claimed that Lively's team had leaked a confidential early screenplay draft to a rival production company, Blue Finch Studios, which allegedly began pitching a near-identical concept, complete with overlapping character arcs, by January 14, 2025. Legal filings pointed to a time-stamped PDF, recovered through metadata that had been downloaded from a shared private folder and then accessed through a Blue Finch executive's account just 6 hours later. This leak alone might have triggered a lawsuit, but it didn't stop there. The most incendiary accusation came under Section 3B of the original complaint, which stated that Blake had allegedly engaged in defamation by proxy, smearing Baldoni in the press using third-party gossip blogs, influencer callouts, and what the suit called covert whisper campaigns. One line in the filing referenced an anonymous tip sent to Ducmois, labeling Baldoni a false feminist and claiming he used social advocacy as a personal branding tool. The tip was submitted on January 22, 2025, just 3 days after Apple TV Plus pulled out of the project without explanation. Baldoni's legal team submitted supporting evidence, including 4 screenshots of Reddit and Twitter posts that appeared within 48 hours of the Ducmois leak. These posts, later linked via IP address to a boutique PR firm tied to Blake's inner circle, repeated language nearly identical to the anonymous gossip. According to digital forensics reports later unsealed, at least 6 posts originated from the same office subnet as Blake's digital strategist, Ivy Kalman. What made the public react most viscerally, though, was the emotional detail Baldoni included in his second amended filing. Attached to it were emails from Blake's team, uncovered through subpoena, referring to Justin as naive, reckless, and mentally unstable. One thread, dated December 12, featured the subject line, "PR fallout if he flips." Another email included the phrase, "Frame it like a burnout, let his own brand bury him." These phrases hit a nerve with Baldoni's fan base, many of whom followed his public work in mental health and community building. Overnight, hashtags like #StandWithJustin and #Silence by Power began trending. While the original court filings were heavily redacted to protect third-party identities and internal company information, leaked drafts published by Gawker Legal Watch suggested that Blake had violated at least 3 distinct non-disclosure agreement clauses, signed in October 2024. These alleged breaches involved 1. Unauthorized dissemination of story assets, 2. Early-stage casting rosters shared outside the partnership, and 3. Unauthorized engagement with a competing production company during exclusivity. The seriousness of these alleged violations wasn't lost on legal observers. Multiple media law experts stated that if proven, these breaches could lead to civil penalties exceeding $8 million given the project's estimated production value. Then came discovery. And that's when the case turned from damning to disastrous for Blake's camp. Digital forensic analysts, hired by Baldoni's team and authorized by the court on March 15, 2025, uncovered deleted iCloud backups that revealed a coordinated pattern of internal sabotage. Among the most explosive findings was a Google Drive folder labeled Greenlight Kill Folder, which contained internal memos, media trackers, and even influencer briefing documents. One particular memo, dated December 3, 2024, stood out. Titled, "If we kill the deal quietly, we kill him publicly," the document outlined a phased strategy to delay internal approvals, leak non-final scripts, and amplify online sentiment questioning Baldoni's integrity. The metadata tied the document back to a device registered under Blake Lively's corporate IP, logged in from an address matching her Hudson Valley production bungalow. Another device ID, linked to Ghislaine Hart, Blake's assistant at the time, was shown accessing the same folder and forwarding materials to a Gmail account registered to Victor Callis, a business consultant at Bluefinch Studios. Callis was later subpoenaed but invoked Fifth Amendment protections during a preliminary inquiry on April 22, 2025. Hart, meanwhile, became a central figure in the case, not only due to her technical footprint, but because of her sudden disappearance. On April 29th, midway through deposition, Hart left the country citing a family emergency and has not returned since. According to Jet Radar flight records, she boarded a direct flight from JFK to Santorini, Greece, with no return leg booked. Her personal counsel has since declined all interview and deposition requests. Blake's team quickly labeled the entire chain of evidence as fabricated and misleading. But when asked to submit a digital counter-analysis or produce original, unaltered files, they failed to meet the court-imposed May 6 deadline. Judge Miguel issued a formal warning, stating in docket entry 120 that Blake's legal team had not complied with the requirements of evidentiary rebuttal under Federal Rule 26. With no counter-evidence and 2 key staffers, Hart and Callis, either unreachable or pleading the fifth, the court granted Baldoni's team full access to all remaining server logs and encrypted folders. These include 113 additional files now being held for a closed evidentiary review on July 12th. The evidence trail also included dozens of WhatsApp messages, recovered from backups and device sync logs, showing direct communication between Hart and Kalman in the weeks leading up to the leak. One message, dated December 6, 2020, read, "She said to slow roll approvals till they ghost. Justin's ego will do the rest." None of these messages were voluntarily submitted by Blake's team. All were recovered through a court-ordered digital preservation audit, granted after the failed counter-analysis submission. And while Blake has maintained public silence, the courtroom record now includes over 250 pages of internal communications, leaked emails, and encrypted strategy files, each one pointing to a pattern, not a misunderstanding. This wasn't just a partnership gone bad, it was a fallout rooted in control, image management, and carefully orchestrated manipulation, with evidence now mounting at an unsustainable pace.